call as project manager in addition to the Scrum Master. So that's what is important in this to note here. TA, technical architect, UAT, user acceptance testing, USC is user story card. So, and then what kind of activities happen in this once you have got these inputs? So you basically have some of the backlog ready, right? The product backlog updated by the product owner ready. And that's what we were discussing earlier, right? So we said the product owner said that 12 of these items are ready for you to look at. So that 12 prioritized or shortlisted items are going into the sprint planning as inputs. But the team could actually kind of go through each of those stories, understand what is, get themselves familiarized with what the stories are, and then they say, no, you know what, that's not really possible. It's not feasible. We don't have the skills for the Angular or JavaScript at the moment. So I don't think we can do that story, this story. This requires database connection and things like that. We don't have that yet, so we can't do this. But the rest we can do. So out of the 12, they can actually choose 7 stories, and that's why the estimation gets done on the 7 stories, how much effort is required, the sizing, the complexity, the t-shirt sizing, and then they would allocate. Again, the allocation or the assignment of work is not done by the Scrum Master or the project manager. It actually gets done by the team, and they actually pick up because, hey, you know what, I have done this piece of work before. I can actually take this 7, 10, and 11. I can work on these stories. Perfect. And somebody else could actually say, yeah, I can take up those front-end stories because I'm comfortable with the technology. And the third person would actually say, I can work on the integration. The fourth one say, okay, I'll help with the testing of these unit testing integration. So it's all within the team. They're all self-motivated, self-organized set of people to assign the tasks to themselves. And these are the enablers. So basically, this is what is required for us to understand to make sure that the sprint planning does well. So during the sprint, there's no change in the scope or duration. Very, very important. So once the sprint starts, so we've agreed to the 7 items in the sprint backlog. The team agreed and they committed, yeah, we will do the 7. We will complete these 7 items. Or in this example, we'll say we will do the item list page, and we'll do the item details page. We'll just show the photo. So we are fine to do this by the end of the sprint. And then somebody suddenly comes and says that, you know what, there's a change in the thing. You said we're agile, right? So let's change this. We are agile. Agile is all about change, accepting change, and being proactive to change. Yeah, please, let's stop this and instead work on the instead of the catalog page, work on the shopping cart, because that is very important. And you know what the boss said, we need to start accepting the payment first and then do the items and the catalog page. So let's change this. I want to change the scope of this sprint. I'll change this items detail. Instead of calling it item details page, let's have the video of the item, right? So that is not acceptable. Yeah, it is all agile, is all fine. Agility, nimble, being ready to accept changes, adapting to changes, and all is absolutely fine. That's all agile, and Scrum is fantastic agile methodology. That doesn't mean when you accept and scope and commit to a time box, a sprint of, let's say, 2 weeks, this is what we're going to do. You can't come and change during that sprint what is happening around, because some developers would have already started working on the backend code, setting up the database, creating tables and stuff like that. So that's where we need to be really conscious of what is the scope of flexibility we have. So during a sprint, no change whatsoever. So during the 2 weeks, you can't change whatever has been agreed upon. If it comes to such a stage that you need to change something, it is so drastic that we can't really work on that, then we have to cancel that sprint. That's called cancellation of sprint. And then we need to take another, we have to have a hard stop on that and start another sprint. We'll talk about all of these in a later detailing. So the customer is God. Yes, you're working for the customer. You're actually dealing with all these customers, and change is important. You have got to be open to change, embrace change, all is fine. But then you already started working on this. You accepted, you committed the 7 items in the sprint, and then you started the work on this. And then customer cannot come and say, you know what, change the 7th one to 6th one, change the 6th one, make it as, instead of an image, you need to show a video. How can that work? Just all of a sudden. And then you've already got some work done by the team. They can't just scrap all of that and start working on this and then still be able to deliver something by the end of the time box within the 2 weeks, right? Because they did not estimate, They did not scope, they did not commit the new thing or the changed thing. So what is important there is the team has committed to something, and that commitment is for the scope that you have identified, that you have estimated, and they gave that, okay, we're ready to go for this 7 items. And then you can't change the things that they've already committed. Number one, they already done the work, they started the work, they finished, perhaps they would have finished something which cannot be undone in a few hours, a few days time. So whatever you want to change would be going into the product backlog. The customer could actually only say that, okay, this is for the next sprint, or this is what I want to do for the next sprint. They cannot come and change something which is already there in the 7 items that is accepted and agreed for by the team activity. So in terms of the sprint backlog, again, the outputs for this one is sprint backlog. It's that's the ownership of the development team. The sprint backlog sign off would be done by the PO, because he or she is the owner of the product backlog, and then they are accepting to this. As we said, after the sprint planning, the team comes back and say, okay, we cannot deliver these 12 items that you asked us to deliver, but we can do these 7 items. Unfortunately, we've got to drop off these 5 items. So these are the 7 items that are now part of the sprint backlog. And then the product owner goes to them and say, okay, fine. Or they would like to negotiate. That discussion happens. So they need to buy in, and then initially they could have a burn down chart, whatever has been agreed upon. We'll talk about the burn down chart later as a technique. And then they will have some kind of acceptance test cases, and who does acceptance testing at this point of time. So that's the outputs of this sprint planning. So end of the day, the important thing is the sprint backlog gets defined, accepted, and frozen by the completion of the sprint planning. So that's what gets done as the major outcome from the sprint planning session.